Angelina Jolie's silence speaks louder than words. A single sentence from her recently has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, revealing a hidden clash between two powerful women behind the scenes. Angelina Jolie is known for staying silent rather than lashing out, but last week she dropped a sentence that stopped the entire industry in its tracks. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it cut deeper than any headline or lawsuit Blake Lively has faced. This was about legacy, reputation, and crossing an unspoken line. Angelina's quiet power. Angelina Jolie is known for staying silent rather than lashing out, but last week she dropped a sentence that stopped the entire industry in its tracks. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it cut deeper than any headline or lawsuit Blake Lively has faced. This was about legacy, reputation, and crossing an unspoken line. At an exclusive, invitation-only panel in Beverly Hills, Angelina's closing remarks focused on the cost of silence. Then she said, "It wasn't planned. It wasn't even in the notes." That line, vague yet sharp, was instantly understood to target Blake Lively. 3 days after Blake launched a charity that mimicked Angelina's long-term refugee advocacy without credit. Angelina doesn't lash out. She doesn't tweet vague shade or make dramatic statements to the press. Instead, her silence is a weapon of precision, a single carefully chosen sentence that ripples deeper than any public controversy. This is the quiet power of a woman who survived every tabloid era, who understands the weight of legacy and reputation, and who's prepared to defend both without raising her voice. Her words delivered at that panel weren't just a critique, but a declaration. It wasn't just about a stolen campaign or uncredited work. It was about respect, authenticity, and the consequences of crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed in advocacy and activism. And in Hollywood, where voices are often loud, her measured silence is far more terrifying. It lets the industry and Blake Lively herself know that this time, the game has changed. The gloves are off. The Artists for Ethics Summit reveal. At an exclusive, invitation-only panel held in Beverly Hills, the atmosphere was intentionally intimate and powerful. The event was not live-streamed, sponsored, or promoted on social media, attracting just 40 attendees, mostly women who have shaped culture, politics, and art. Angelina Jolie was the closing speaker, tasked with addressing the often overlooked cost of silence in public life. She spoke slowly, carefully, not reading from notes, but telling raw truth from the heart. Suddenly, she uttered a sentence that was not planned, nor included in the notes she'd prepared for the moderator. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even in the notes. That one sentence stopped the room cold, and a hush fell over every attendee. Despite no name being mentioned, it was immediately clear to everyone present who she was referring to. The line cut through years of carefully managed public personas and media spin, striking deeper than any tabloid scandal could. It wasn't just about telling a story, but about stealing someone else's voice while smiling for the camera. This wasn't an accusation shouted out loud, but a surgical strike delivered with velvet gloves. The timing was critical, as only 3 days earlier Blake Lively had launched a charity initiative that borrowed heavily from Angelina's long-term refugee advocacy work, without asking, crediting, or even informing those involved. According to insiders, Angelina was furious. The entire room understood the gravity of the moment, sensing that this was more than a dispute over credit. It was about legacy, betrayal, and the ethics of advocacy in Hollywood. The whispered conversations that followed have not stopped since, each person digesting the weight of her words and what they meant for the industry's future. The Homebound campaign controversy. Blake's Homebound initiative looked noble on the surface, but was a near replica of Angelina's 2019 UNHCR campaign. Same phrasing, same locations. Even the tagline was lifted word for word. When the controversy erupted, Blake's campaign quietly disappeared from the internet, sparking widespread suspicion and online uproar. On the surface, it was a pastel-branded website, a touching voiceover ad, and smiling photos holding hands with displaced women. The tagline, "Rebuilding what's been broken, one voice at a time," was lifted directly from a protected UN campaign co-written by Angelina Jolie and a retired war reporter. Worse, the village Blake visited was one Angelina had been working with for over 6 years. Yet, there was no mention or credit to Angelina anywhere. A leaked UN press aid email to Blake's team read, "While we appreciate the visibility, the narrative and language appear lifted directly from protected UN content." Ms. Jolie is understandably distressed. Blake's team denied any prior knowledge, but deeper digging revealed the troubling reality. Online media and advocacy groups called it out as copy-paste theft, not homage. 3 days after Angelina's cutting quote started circulating, Blake's homebound campaign page went under maintenance. The pastel video was taken down, tagged posts wiped from Instagram, with no public statement or apology. Reddit threads exploded with screenshots comparing Blake's deleted content side by side with Angelina's decade-old refugee visits, revealing they weren't just similar, they were mirrors. The same phrasing, the same image framing, the same walk and talk shots surrounded by local women, except one felt authentic and the other staged and marketed. This wasn't just about a PR misstep anymore. It was legacy theft, the appropriation of a cause forged through Angelina's 20 years of real work in war zones, twisted into a branded photo shoot styled for social media. A culture critic summed it up. Blake did one filter trip and tried to rebrand trauma like it was her lifestyle blog. I'm actually disgusted. Hollywood's silent response. 2 major fashion magazines pulled pre-release articles on Blake's charity. A humanitarian talk show postponed her episode. Notably, international advocacy stars began silently unfollowing Blake on Instagram. Absence of support spoke volumes in an industry where every move is carefully spotted. For Hollywood, actions often speak louder than words, and this quiet distancing became a powerful statement. The unspoken message was clear. Blake Lively had crossed a line. Even as no official statements were made, the ripple effects were undeniable. Friends and allies gradually turned their backs, a subtle but ruthless form of blacklisting. The silence was deafening and telling. The lack of public defense only deepened suspicions, leaving Blake isolated in the very circles she sought to join. This silent response highlighted a harsh truth of the industry. Respect and legacy cannot be bought or faked. The quiet withdrawals were loud enough to signal that Blake's carefully crafted image could not shield her from the consequences of legacy theft. In an environment where optics matter most, the quiet unfollows and cancellations spoke a scandal no Twitter post ever could. Ancient words, new meanings. Angelina's decades of genuine work stood in sharp contrast to Blake's curated weekend photo shoots and old 2011 clips of Blake saying, "If you look the part, you'll get the part" resurfaced and hit millions, reframed as a symbol of shallow imitation versus authentic activism. This moment turned into a viral dagger aimed straight at Blake. Natalie Portman broke her silence by following Angelina and reposting a quote about legacy being what remains after you're gone. Then a leaked video showed her reflecting on protecting true advocacy from celebrity hijacking. It was the quietest but sharpest rebuke Hollywood has seen in years. A behind-the-scenes 2016 clip resurfaced where Angelina warns about turning real pain into aesthetics, saying those who copy empathy often feel it the least. Though not aired then, these words now echo louder than ever, revealing how long Angelina foresaw this moment. Natalie Portman's subtle statement. Natalie Portman broke her silence by following Angelina Jolie on Instagram, a move that might seem small, but in her carefully curated list of fewer than 200 follows, every action is deliberate, loaded with meaning. Just 2 days after the follow, she reposted a poignant quote on her story. "Legacy isn't about being seen. It's about what remains when you're no longer looking." No names were mentioned, but the message was crystal clear, stirring tension beneath the surface. Then came a leaked video from a private women in film event in Berlin, where Natalie was recorded speaking with a small group of activists. When one woman expressed how tough it was to protect authentic advocacy from being hijacked by celebrities, Natalie smiled knowingly and replied, "Yes, and I think the world is finally learning to tell the difference." The clip lasted only 11 seconds, but it hit social media like a storm, igniting discussions everywhere. Synclips Daily described it as Natalie Portman throwing the quietest dagger ever and somehow still ending a whole career. This subtle yet powerful rebuke highlighted the growing frustration in Hollywood over performative activism. Natalie's nuanced actions and words served as a shield for genuine advocacy, silently condemning those who exploit humanitarian causes for image rather than impact. In a world dominated by loud controversies, her quiet statement resonated deeply, proving that not all battles are fought with shouts. Some are won in the silence between the lines. Angelina's unseen warning. A behind-the-scenes 2016 clip resurfaced where Angelina warns about turning real pain into aesthetics, saying those who copy empathy often feel it the least. Though not aired then, these words now echo louder than ever, revealing how long Angelina foresaw this moment. She speaks off camera about the dangers of treating advocacy like fashion, explaining that when people do this, something gets lost: the real stories, the ugly truths, the discomfort. She pauses, looks straight into the lens, and finishes with, "And sometimes those who copy the language of empathy the best are the ones who feel it the least." That line was cut from the final campaign video, but now it has gone viral. Shared widely across TikTok and social media, it captures the essence of the clash between genuine activism and performative charity. This clip didn't just warn about aesthetics. It highlighted a deeper issue in Hollywood activism, where surface-level gestures can drown out true voices. Angelina's foresight revealed her frustration, not only with people who imitate her work, but with those who erase her legacy while borrowing it. Her silent strength lies in this warning: authenticity cannot be faked, and empathy cannot be staged. In an era of online activism and celebrity branding, this message hits harder than ever, reminding everyone that behind every genuine cause, there is a real story that demands respect, not just a pretty campaign. The fallout and aftermath. With Blake silently canceling appearances and erasing her campaign, no one publicly defended her. Fan pages switched allegiance. An anonymous homebound team in turn revealed Blake once dismissed the backlash as unlikely to stick. Yet, that one sentence unleashed a tide of consequences Blake never expected. This sudden silence spoke louder than any apology or explanation ever could. The removal of Blake's presence from scheduled events left industry insiders whispering, "What really happened behind the scenes?" Social media shifted dramatically as admiration for Angelina's authentic work grew. Supporters who once celebrated Blake began reevaluating her brand and intentions. The power of a well-timed, carefully chosen phrase had shattered the illusion Blake had built. It wasn't just a campaign failure, it was a public reckoning. Hollywood, known for its careful image crafting, rarely shows its fractures so clearly. Yet, this fallout spread like wildfire, quietly but decisively isolating Blake. The once bright narrative of empathy and empowerment around Homebound collapsed under the weight of accusations of imitation and erasure. Behind closed doors, the message was clear: legacy, respect, and genuine activism cannot be purchased or faked. The aftermath remains a cautionary tale in celebrity advocacy, highlighting how the silent judgments of peers and public can dismantle carefully curated personas overnight. Blake's miscalculation was believing a polished image could stand up to lived experience and quiet, relentless truth. Angelina Jolie's quiet but powerful statement did what tabloid scandals never could. It exposed the difference between authentic activism and polished performance, reminding us that some legacies can't be borrowed or faked. In Hollywood's silent wars, sometimes the quietest voice hits the hardest. This moment wasn't just a clash between two famous women. It was a stark reminder of the value of genuine commitment in a world that often rewards surface-level gestures. While Blake Lively's campaign vanished quietly, the ripple effects remain, showing that those who appropriate someone else's pain for personal gain can face serious backlash. It's clear now that activism isn't a backdrop for photo ops. It's a lifelong, sometimes painful dedication that can't simply be styled or scripted. Angelina's enduring legacy, built on decades of real work and empathy, stands in sharp contrast to the recent controversies, highlighting the price of silent strength and real courage. As the industry watches silently but decisively, It's evident that respect and authenticity can't be faked or bought, and sometimes, just a few carefully chosen words can change everything.